Hey everyone, welcome to Taqueando. I'm your host, Bill Esparza, and this week we are heading to one of my favorite places, the tranquil tree-lined streets of the sophisticated Jardim Paulistano, which is a neighborhood in the Pinheiros district of São Paulo. And at the end of this quiet cul-de-sac of Rua Frei Galvão resides Brazil's best restaurant, according to Latin America's 50 Best. And it's a 2 Michelin star restaurant, Tuju. So in this episode, I'll be talking to Chef Ivan Ralston from Tuju in São Paulo. And, the last time I was there was right after the 50 Best Restaurant Awards in Rio, the Latin America 50 Best. And I was there for both Latin America 50 Best, events in Rio. They do it 2 years in a city and they move on to another city. They did it in Guatemala this last year, but come on, Rio de Janeiro, I'm going to skip that. No, I was there both years. And somebody was like, oh, you must really like 50 Best. I'm like, what? Okay. I do like 50 Best. I guess, I like the restaurants but the event is one thing, but Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo are my favorite cities on the planet among a very small group of cities, a handful of cities that I just love to death. And I always want to visit for the rest of my life. And so right after the 50 Best ceremony, where I saw Tuju get #1 restaurant in Brazil, and or maybe it was this year I believe, doesn't matter. They were definitely high up the list. So I went back to my Airbnb right next door to the Copacabana Palace in Rio de Janeiro. And I wanted to grab a bite because, at these events, there's little snacks going around and I was socializing. So I went around the corner to Cervantes, which is a pub, a boteco in Rio, a very famous one, known for their sanduíche de pernil, which is a pork leg sandwich. And there's lots of famous pork leg sandwiches. And let me just say, Latin America, for me, has the best sandwiches because some of them do echo and have traditions in Europe, of course, right? Cold cuts and using bread and these things, but they go the extra length with the local ingredients. So where a simple ham and cheese in another part of the world gets really tricked out, like when it comes to Mexico and you put it in a torta and you add chiles and all kinds of things in it, right? Chipotle, mayo, or whatever. Of course, the only famous one in South America is the choripan. But, if you love Argentina like I do, there's the choripan, the morcipan, the vasiopan. There's all kinds of variations. But South America, man, just has wonderful sandwiches. So the sanduíche de pernil at Cervantes, there's the standard order, which is the roasted pork leg with pineapple. And that's that extra ingredient. You're thinking, oh, that's not a big deal, but it really is a nice flavor. And then you add pimenta, you have some hot sauce with it, some olive oil, and it's a great sandwich. But my order there is to get the pâté de fígado, which is the liver pâté. So pork leg, liver pâté, pineapple, and of course I put lots of pimenta, hot sauce on it. Love that sandwich. That's a place I love to go. A lot of times if you arrive in Rio really late, you get in after midnight or something, that place is going to be open. And of course, after the event, it was open. And the next morning, I flew to São Paulo to spend a couple days because I had a reservation at Tuju the next day. And I went to, I love to always explore the breakfast, lunches, and dinners of a place. I think that's a lot of people look for restaurant lists, and I like to do food lists better than restaurant lists. But the other thing I like to do is to really get into what do people eat at breakfast, what do people eat at lunch, have lots of experiences in both of those meal times, and of course dinners. And on this day, I was going to have a fine dining tasting menu at Tuju, which is one of my favorite restaurants on the planet. But I wanted to go to this one padaria, a bakery, and have breakfast there. And of course, the bakeries I love the Brazilian system. You walk in, they give you a card and you can buy things to go. and you can also have breakfast. You can, and at the end, you just pay for everything on the way out, and you surrender your card, and they give you your bill. So I went to Belo São Paulo, Pais e Doces. So wonderful breakfast place and bakery. And they have an old fashioned breakfast counter, like a cafeteria. And then, like I said, the other side is sweets and then miscellaneous things. I ordered a tapioca. I love tapiocas. I make them here at home. They look like tacos, and they're made with polvilho doce, which is a type of flour made from yuca. And so you mix that with water, get it to the right consistency, dry it out a little bit, run it through a sieve, and you just throw it in a pan, no oil or anything, and it starts to glue together. It looks like a little, like I said, it looks like a tortilla in a little thicker though, of course, made of tapioca, and then that gets filled with all kinds of things regionally. And so I ordered a tapioca at Belo São Paulo with like scrambled eggs and ham inside of it. And so I had that. I also had pão na chapa, which for a lot of people, they would go to Brazil and say, well, I don't want to eat just bread and butter with coffee. Okay, I do. I really want to, again, I want to be there for culturally. I'm not so interested in do I have to try the most exotic thing and save room in my stomach only for that? No, I want to have local experiences. But at this breakfast spot, they had a pão na chapa, which means bread on the flat top with butter. But this was done with a pão de queijo. Nice little twist. Those are those little things that are very normal in Brazil that you never see here in the U.S. Our Brazilian restaurants here are very limited, as many other cultures' restaurants are limited. But so this is a very nice pão de queijo, which everybody loves. You get them at the churrascarias, I know, here in Los Angeles and around the U.S. But those ones aren't always as great as the ones you can get in Brazil. They have access to the cheese from Minas Gerais. They have just better products in general, better ingredients. And so this is a really wonderful pão de queijo, toasted on a flat top with butter. And I had that with coffee in my tapioca. So wonderful breakfast. And then I took a rest and walked around, had some drinks. I want to mention at Cervantes, I also had one of my favorite drinks in the world, which is a caipifruta. Now, the caipirinha, which comes with lime. But in Brazil, you get all kinds of caipirinhas. A lot of times they're just called caipifrutas that have all kinds of local fruit, Amazon fruit. And this one had jaboticaba. Jaboticaba is a fruit that only grows there. You can't really get it here in the States unless it's like frozen. Yeah, you can only grow it in Florida and Hawaii, but it's not commercially used. So jaboticaba is a wonderful, interesting fruit, very common in Brazil and common in São Paulo. That's backyard trees. So it's jaboticaba with strawberry, caipifruta. So I had that too. So a couple of interesting local bites between Latin America's 50 Best and my dinner at Tuju. And coming up next is my talk with this amazing chef. He worked the brigade of Serra de Can Roca, Mugaritz, Ryugen. Not to mention, he attended the Berklee College of Music to study bass, and is I think like me, a frustrated jazz musician. Wandering around in this culinary world. So welcome, Chef Ivan.
Thank you, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So we've known each other a while. I first went to your restaurant, the Tuju 1.0, and sometime before the pandemic, and I know it opened in 2014, but I didn't realize till later that you studied jazz, and so I kind of want to know how you fell out of jazz and into the kitchen.
Well, I come from a restaurateur family, so kind of the kitchen was at my life since I was born, pretty much. Now, music was something that I got into in high school. I had a bunch of friends, and we are all very into jazz. At the time, I was studying electric bass and really into stuff like Jaco Pastorius,
Yeah.
this kind of music. And then I got into a band and start, playing like covering these tunes. And when I turned 18, I wanted to go to music school. My father was in panic, like, please don't do that. And then I went and try to go to Berkeley in Boston. Got accepted there, went there. It was great. But to be honest, like the level there of the musicians is so high that I just think I didn't have the talent to become a professional musician, Although I graduated, but when I got back home, I was still 20-year old and I couldn't make any money. So I went straight to the kitchen to work at my family's restaurant because my father was this type of very tough Jewish parent. Like, so you need to work, you need to make money. So I kind of never got the chance to work as a professional, but I guess it was for the best in the end.
Yeah, I mean, you're I imagine, being a jazz fusion player in São Paulo would be really rough. I mean, you'd have to move to New
You
York
know,
or something.
I would have to move to New York, but the level in New York of the musicians it's so creative. Like I still have some friends that do that, but of course they were the best of the best, like
Sure.
in our year. And music is still a huge passion in me.
It's funny because I have this, I always tell, I talk to chefs and people on, food writers, and a lot of them think that cooking is as difficult as playing jazz. So let me just ask you this. What's more difficult, a 10-course dinner at Tuju or Giant Steps?
Well, great question, especially giant steps. Um, Once that's a great question, man. Ba-na-na-na-na,
Right,
ba-dum,
exactly.
ba-na-na-na. So, in my opinion, I remember someone asked me once if I felt pressure about cooking. We were at an event and we were cooking for some important people, let's put that way. And then they asked, do you get nervous? And I said, honestly, not, because I was trained to play music. So
Right.
the like comparison of the pressure is like there's nothing to do with it. Like one thing is you are in the kitchen and then you have to serve great food, but it seems you have your space.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to music, you are at the stage and it's a whole different thing.
You're exposed.
I think it's a whole different level of pressure for sure.
Sure. Well, okay. And, I would say that, that spirit of improvisation and being free is very alive at Tuju, which you named after. I like that you just kind of named it after a cool bird that you like, the
Yeah.
Tuju bird. Um, so what was Tuju like in 2014 compared to, where you've taken it now?
Honestly, when we opened in 2014, Tuju was not meant to be a fine dining restaurant, and it wasn't at all. It was a la carte. We are serving 160 people for dinner, like in one night. So we are doing pretty much everything. Like we are doing um, lunch menu, a la carte, small tasting menu, big tasting menu. We are doing everything. Like, and my goal, like, and I say this with all the honesty, like, was not to break, because
Sure.
restaurants are such a difficult business. And I feel sometimes that in this industry, chefs, their goals are to gain stars or be in the 50 best list or something like that. But my goal, and it still is not to break my business, not to go bankrupt. And I think it's a good goal, because
That is a good.
now I have 3 children, and
That's why you're not a musician.
so exactly. I have this sense of responsibility with my family, and it kind of we were evolving, and at one point, when we moved to this new location, we stopped doing a la carte. We only have one menu, but it was a whole big process. Like, it wasn't like we are born that way and meant to be like that.
By the time I went to Tuju, you were doing tasting menus. You'd been in it you had already earned a Michelin star, I believe. By the time I went at the first Tuju.
In the old one, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was already getting recognition, but then, but the pandemic, obviously, well, it ended up giving you a big opportunity. You guys shut down for 3 years?
Yes. For 2 years and a half, more or less, but yes.
Right, for 2.5 years. And so you really explored, you spent those 2.5 years exploring and really trying to define what is seasonality in a country that really eats staple foods all year long, right? It has these dishes that everybody eats regardless of season all year round. And it's not like California or other types of climates. Brazil has it's a big country full of all kinds of climate and seasons. And so where did you go and what did you see during this time?
Yeah. So what goes on is that seasonality express itself in a different way here than one would think, like when it compares to Europe or the north of the United States, where you can really get those 4 seasons and it's really clear, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I lived in Boston, there was the snowing months, and then there was wind, and then all the trees turned orange. It's beautiful. But here, things are a bit different. We don't get much variation of temperature. However, we get a lot of different quantities of rain. And because of that, we get different products depending of the time of the year. So we have the dry season, which is more on July, and then we have the rainy season, which is more now, and then the betweens, right? Of course, depending of which season is it, you get some products or others. So what we did was travel mostly to the countryside of São Paulo, but we also went to different parts of Brazil, and try to catalog what we could get every time of the year. So when we started the restaurant was great because we kind of already knew, like, we had a plan, so between this month and this, we'll serve this, and then next month we'll serve that. So we kind of had a good plan of where to go.
Yeah, and so you divided into the 4 seasons: chuva, ventania, umidade, seca, which are rain, windy season, humid season, and dry season. And I actually got to try 2 of the menus. Um, I'm sitting here with my humidity menu right here that I did, and right after you opened, I was able to get in for the new restaurant. Obviously, because of what was happening during 50 Best, it put a lot of eyes on Brazil in general. The 2 years it was in Rio.
Yes, absolutely.
It's fascinating what you're doing there. So those menus are allowing you to highlight the seasons, but also expressing São Paulo as a city of immigrants and multiple cultures, but also just the indigenous ingredients that are coming from different parts of Brazil.
So what goes on is that São Paulo is one of those 5 most multicultural cities in the world. I would say probably São Paulo, New York, LA,
Yeah.
London, maybe I don't know, maybe Mumbai in India. I don't know, but it kind of is this place where encounters happen. You get people from everywhere in the world, but also from everywhere in Brazil. So it's kind of a central station from the country. We got immigrants from all parts of Brazil here, and it's where things collide here. So that's the beauty about São Paulo. It's not a beautiful city. We don't have the ocean. We don't, but the São Paulo, I like to say it's like the the most beautiful people you can encounter. They are beautiful inside, not outside. So it's a city that has some sort of a good energy. You get here, and then you can experience a lot of things here. So it's great.
Yeah, it's an interesting intersection because you have, as you said, people coming in like a lot of the botecos have people from Minas Gerais that open, or the Northeast, and they're bringing that cuisine into São Paulo, and those dishes are becoming, you know, uh, São Paulo dishes and São Paulo cuisine.
You are a sensible man, because I don't know if you know that, but the food in São Paulo and Minas Gerais, for example, especially in the countryside of São Paulo, is pretty much the same, because this used to be the same state. It's called Paulistania. Uh, and the food is very similar. What we call here in the countryside of São Paulo, comida caipira, which is countryside food.
Country cuisine.
It's the same food as they eat in Minas Gerais. So it's funny that you realize that by yourself.
Well, I'd say, decades eating in botecos and lanchonettes, but so yeah, I mean, I love Brazil, and I love the Brazilian way of eating, which I want to talk to you a little bit later on here. But the last thing that's I thought was really fascinating about the new Tuju is the wine program, where you have international wines, which obviously would be favored by certain types of people, but you also have a South American wine list. And it's not just Brazilian, but you have Peruvian wines, and of course Chile and Argentina we knew that those are going to be there, but Uruguay, all kinds of interesting South American wines. How did how did that happen?
Well, I'm very into wines. To be honest, especially with French wines. But I have to be honest with you. Like, although we have a good wine list here, is unmatchable comparing to what you can get in a restaurant in France. So I think we do well on focusing on Latin American wines, because um, it's like when people travel and they get in São Paulo and go to Tuju, they have the opportunity to try something different, and
Yeah.
I feel like European people or Americans, when they come to Brazil, they don't want to drink French wine or
No, we don't.
Italian wine. They want to drink local wine. They want to try the taste of the land, right?
Yeah.
And so it's funny because we have those wines, but they are more meant to the Brazilian customers, the Europeans and everything, because maybe makes more sense for them. But for the tourists, then of course it's more interesting to try Brazilian, Argentinian, Chilean. And I've been traveling. I got the opportunity to travel a lot last year, and I tried some great Mexican wines the other day, or Peruvian.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite was from Bolivia, for example. So there's pretty much a lot of great things happening in this industry in Latin America. And I really want to showcase that, because it's what we do.
Yeah. No, I loved it. I get it. The owner of Fazano is going to come in and get the European list, but I'm coming in for all the wonderful South American wines. So, you know, as you said, that there's a, you have really focused on hospitality, and your goal was not to, to break, not to go broke having a restaurant, but you've really, you put on an incredible show. And the one thing that stuck out for me was I was watching your kitchen, and and you can't help but not watch. And I just loved how everything was so quiet. And then I noticed the headphones. You guys are wearing headphones, and I thought that's interesting. And then I looked. I was talking to my friend. I turn around, and then like the guy that was on uh Saucier was gone, and he was somewhere else. And then somebody else was on that station, and I was thinking, what the hell is going on here? And so I asked you about it, and you say you hate line kitchens. And so you've sort of broken away from that, and you have all chef de partie, and with just a pastry chef that stays in one position and a chef, if I'm correct in my memory on that. And that's such a radical thing to do, to just completely throw away the traditional line kitchen and do it this way.
Yeah.
What makes you do that?
You know, um, to be honest, like it's because we need that because we only have this place to do everything that you saw.
Yeah.
So all the team must be prepared to do almost everything. We still have some chef de parties there. We have 3 different stations, and every one of them is in charge of one. But then the rest of the team is kind of moving all around, and
Yeah.
helping whoever needs at the moment. So the chef de partie is trying to keep consistency and get the flavors right and everything. But then the team is kind of moving around where the chef de partie needs it or the chef.
Yeah. What is it that you don't like about the traditional line kitchen? I mean, I just remember you saying that when I went there the second time.
I studied a lot that like, and I trained at some very traditional kitchens. And when I was studying that, I realized like all that culture. I'm sure you read about that before, but it comes from a military structure, right? Like, so Escoffier
Yeah.
was the one who kind of designed how we work at
It's a brigade.
the brigade, right? So I thought it doesn't make sense. Like, we should see restaurants more as a company, a business, and be creative how we manage that as much as we are when we create dishes and everything. So what I thought was, like, to be honest, my wife influenced me a lot on that because she's so mature and calm. I think she made the restaurant so much better when she entered and we started working together. But then she's always putting that effort, like for us to try to be more professional and less stricted and try to teach in a better way everything, without slimming. Because it's funny because um, there's a lot of kitchens that chefs still scream at the at the team, and it doesn't make any sense because imagine if you go to Google or something like that and a boss starts screaming. I think everybody would leave. One day I had this conversation with them and they look at me like, yeah, but they scream.
Right. You're supposed to scream, right?
People fun because I thought they didn't. Yeah, but they scream as well. But then the point is like, let's try to be more professional because getting nervous and out of control is always a sign that things are not as they should be, right? And if things are not as they should be, it might be because it's not well planned enough.
Yeah.
But what we try to do is, and then it comes again, like in somehow, I think the work of a chef is very similar to what would be a work of a music conductor, right? A maestro.
Yeah.
Your job is to make sure that everybody plays at the right moment. And if everybody's prepared, then there's no need to scream or to get nervous or to have a stressful service, So that's what it is. It's like music.
Yeah, it's funny. I, I'm glad that you went there because I was like, it's almost very much the instincts of a musician where you have this different kind of communication going on with your restaurant where it's quiet, you know, you're talking softly into the headsets and giving and communicating, and of course, under and I'm very impressed. I mean, by the hospitality, of course, but that your wife, Caterina Cordaz, helped really develop this system. It makes a lot of sense because when I see the movement of every people are always impressed by, 10 plates being set down at the same time by the staff and the way everybody moves and does that. But the way you're doing it is just a different style, and it has a looseness and creativity that you're talking about. So you think that this militaristic thing is stifling? Because I think as jazz musicians, rock musicians, what musicians in general, um, militaristic music and this militaristic ideals in music is the antithesis of art, right? I always hated marching bands. I had to do it in school, but I hated it because that exact same thing. I'm like, this isn't music.
Except for one, right? The Darth Vader march from is really cool, right? Pam 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 pam.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's sort of, you're right. There's an antithesis and a counter culture of militarism that's in the brigade that obviously people have gotten upset over and have called out in recent years and have asked for it to stop. But you made that decision on your own a while ago.
Well, I feel music and food are so similar in so much ways that people don't imagine. First of all, like uh they are all about layers, both of them. And I feel food is like music for the palate. When you get three notes, you get a chord, right? And you can make harmony in music of it. And food is pretty much the same thing. The combination of ingredients, it makes harmony for the palate. Then I feel like we should treat food more like an art, more like music, and not as much as a military thing, as it was in some point, and maybe it made sense. And who am I to judge how things were done in the past? But because things were done certain way in the past, it doesn't mean it needs to still be doing that way in the future.
Right.
So I think our generation would do a big favor for the industry if we leave a more professional and humane workspace for the cooks and everybody in the industry.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody that would, disagree with that. And I like that Tuju is about harmony and making music. And I have to say, if you could just kind of I know I've read that having the 2.5 years off gave you the time to really plan out this restaurant. And it falls within what's very, in fashion right now, having three separate spaces for the dining experience. But yours feels so organic, it feels so organic, beautiful, and natural. And I love that you arrive to that cul-de-sac and you walk through the door and you go down this beautiful long corridor into a courtyard with a jabuticaba tree, and that's where you get your amuse-bouche and snacks and bespoke cocktails. Can you kind of talk about that first impression people have when they walk in?
Yeah. So it's as I said, you are a sensible man. You realize the ideas without anyone having to explain for you. So first of all, like the floor, it's from a material called pedra, Portuguese stone, which is maybe the most common thing you see in São Paulo. Like in Avenida Paulista, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
On Faria Lima also. And then it comes from outside to the inside, So the idea is that that space is sort of a continuation of the street. You get in, and then of course, like everything we use that was local. Like all the plants come from Mata Atlântica, which is the rainforest, just 30 minutes from São Paulo. The jabuticaba tree, the same thing. And the idea is for you to kind of enter there, but still feel connected to the city. That's the goal. Like, not like. So it was something that we tried really hard because we are doing the project for the restaurant, and we were really concerned, and I'm sure you agree with me on that a lot of restaurants these days, like no matter where you are, they feel the same, like
Yeah.
because
Yes, they do.
everything is so pasteurized these days, and you have all the information you want in the internet, and everybody is connected to the internet, so everybody gets the same influences. So we try really hard, like, to be original in that sense, of the architecture. And of course, the building is made in a specific style called Brutalismo Paulista, which is the modern, traditional architectural style of São Paulo.
Yeah.
Very well known by, for example, Paulo Mendes da Rocha, which is the architect that won the Pritzker Prize.
Yeah.
Him and Oscar Niemeyer. And we kind of wanted to give it that vibe, that vibe that you get in São Paulo in a lot of places.
Yeah. I mean, it's sophisticated, but at the same time, you have all these personal touches that you and your wife put in the restaurant that, you know, that if you're not, if you're, you can miss it if you're not paying attention, but especially up on the
Yeah.
terrace, you have personality in there, and there's so much personality in the actual service, and what you've set out to do. And so you leave, you have these amazing bites of local ingredients, and then great cocktails, and then you go up to an elevator to the first floor, and it's a real subdued dining room. But again, I haven't I've been to a lot of restaurants that have a kitchen in the center, and that's always fun, but yours sort of it really captivated me to where I was like, I spent at least half of my time talking, and then the other half we were just watching the movements of the kitchen, the movements of the staff. It's so elegant.
It's
And
very open, right? Some
yeah,
kitties are open, and this one is like it's naked.
it's naked.
Yeah, the idea was pretty much like we saw. Of course, we've seen restaurants like that before, but we wanted to give that vibe of eating in the kitchen that you get in some houses, where you go to a friend's house and then the table is set in the kitchen. It was pretty much that. Like, we wanted, like, to have these three different moments when you dine there, but for every one of them to feel very different one from the other, because we kind of feel, when you change the set, it kinds of gives you it kind of renew your spirit. That's the idea. So because when you are like for 3 hours on a table meat, you get bored, but then
Sure.
you get the appetizers in a place, and then go eat some dishes in the other, and then go for coffee in the rooftop. So the idea was to kind of renew the spirit of the guest, like whenever he's moving to the next floor.
Right. And yeah, so and through like you said, there's a definite sense of place that feels like São Paulo, and the architecture and the ingredients and everything. I loved and now that you mention it, yeah, there is this sort of there's professional hospitality, but it's also warm. And I remember being presented, I think you came to the table and you had Patagonian, not Patagonian, you had Amazonian, okay, and you brought Amazonian duck to the table, but the duck was wild because normally it's farmed, I guess.
Yeah. So this is something that we were really also concerned about, as I mentioned before. Like, I didn't want the food there to feel like it could be um, anywhere else in the world. Sometimes we get these compliments, and I feel they are the worst we could get. I want people to feel they are in São Paulo, and get something that they could only get there. Because, of course, like these days, Brazil has sort of become the farm of the world. So we are huge food producers, but the quality of that food is more in a commodity level,
Sure.
like it's not like when you go outside Brazil, when you see some Brazilian products, they are never that special, but there's amazing things happening here in small farms and producers around the city and in different areas of Brazil. So a goal that I put was that I didn't want us to serve anything that was a commodity. And
Yeah.
to be honest, it's something that influenced me on that. I still remember I had two guests at the old location and they ate the menu and they said, "Look, it was amazing, but why are you giving us berry cacao at the end of the meal? Like, we want to try some local cacao." And that gave me a thought because I thought, oh, but they don't have an idea. Like, it's so difficult to work with those small chocolatiers because it's difficult to get. And then the texture is just not the right to make some nice bonbons. So what we did in this new location was kind of, it doesn't matter how difficult it is, we will find a way to work with everybody from Brazil. So we have two exceptions for that. One is wine, of course. We have wine from outside Brazil.
Yeah.
And also caviar. We use caviar from Italy. It's the only foreign product that we have in the menu. Even the truffles that we use these days come from South Brazil.
Oh, where are you getting? Where do they produce truffles in Brazil?
In South Brazil, in Rio Grande do Sul, they have white truffles there.
Oh,
But it's in season now. And then that was the goal. Like, and of course, chocolate. I still remember I used to say, no, we use everything from Brazil, but then the flour is from Italy and the chocolate is from France. And now, not anymore. Now the chocolate comes from Bahia. And it's funny because the person who makes the chocolate, I think you would love to interview her. She's has a very similar background, just like you. She's from Los Angeles as well. She lives in Brazil, married with a Puerto Rican guy and with Mexican family.
Oh, wonderful.
And she makes the best chocolate in Brazil. It's called Mission Chocolate. I think they sell in the United States and as well. They export to the US. So we went with her to Bahia and saw the plantations, and it shocked me because once we were there, she showed me, look, this is the cacao that goes to the industry to make the same producer. He does two things. He does cacao for the industry and then for small producers like her.
Yeah.
And she showed me like, okay, this is what we were using before. And then it had a very bad appearance. Cacao was, to be honest, it was all fucked up. And then she showed me what we would get. And she said, so this is our cacao for us and for another chocolatier in the United States, which they were exporting, like half of us for this guy and half for her. And I said, man, it's just like anything else, like you get a great apple, so beautiful, so taken care of, and commodity apple.
Right.
And then it was that day that I realized, I must make sure that every product we use at the restaurant has a sense of connection, and to be
Yeah.
real and honest with that, because I don't feel motivated to cook if I don't, feel connected to the ingredients, and that made a lot of difference in this phase, because everything we are serving there, we know where it comes from, we know who caught it or who farmed it, and it makes all the difference,
Yeah, it's really a wonderful blend of these incredible ingredients. Of course, incredible technique, but just the small touches of Brazilian seasonal flavors and ingredients. Brazil it's amazing because it has this reputation of this hearty place of churrasco and Italian food and these PF, prato feito, the big, but it has that, but it also has so many crazy ingredients that when you add all that together, you have such an incredible food culture, you know?
Yeah, and of course, Brazil is always good uh, to remember that, because for some reason we felt really apart of Latin America, maybe because of the language barrier, uh, but we are absolutely Latin Americans,
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
Mexicans are.
Com certeza.
Consider and what connects us all, when you think about one thing that you can get from the north or of Argentina to the south of the United States, which used to be part of Latin America as well,
Yeah.
it's corn, right?
Yeah.
So corn is so important for us and so important for Mexicans and for Peruvians. And in like on this new phase, we're really in like trying to, understand the tradition of corn in Brazil, but also trying to find different ways to cook it, and it's been a fun challenge,
Well, it's amazing, and it's obviously all the work your team has done. You got to 2 Michelin stars really fast. I know that wasn't your goal. Your goal is to stay in business, but it really has taken off. I've never seen a restaurant, especially a reopening of a restaurant, just move so quickly on all these lists and get all these accolades and really get your shit together so fast.
Well, as I mentioned, I think the most important thing is to have harmony in the restaurant, like, because when you're doing things right, you make money, you you get the accolades naturally, without having to be irresponsible uh for that. And I felt like it came in a more mature time of my life, like, um it really, I have to be honest, it will never be my goal, because I think chasing those things, if that's your motivation, it kind of gives me that superficial vibe, like I feel like stars lists are things that you shouldn't chase, you should get when you deserve, I know it's difficult because, there's a lot of PR agencies and everything manipulating everything, like in his industry. But anyway, I truly believe the way the Japanese take care of their business, in Japan, like a chef, like he really tries to get the best ingredients. He still put his hand on the food. And there's no much this sense of fame that we are chasing sometimes really hard in the West. So yeah, I feel like that's the kind of chef I want to be. Like the one that, if I get those things, great. If I don't, it's okay. There's no problem.
I keep telling people there's Tuju, your rise has been so fast that a lot of people still don't even know about you. I mean, people do obviously that are following Latin America for sure, and certainly that are up on these lists and everything. But I was talking to some guys the other day, and they had been to São Paulo recently, and I asked if they went to Tuju, and I'm like, yo, you got to go. It's obviously the 2 Michelin star is a great selling point for that crowd that likes to go to these types of restaurants, which I do too. Um, and so it's amazing how fine dining has evolved in such a short time. Brazil is very much like Mexico. The Dom opened in 1999, and right around the same time, right after that, Puyol opened up in Mexico City. Panheya in Monterrey opened up around that same time. So it's still a very young fine dining scene. And so how have things changed since that time period? Since, I think before that, there was no real trajectory for a chef to be a modern Brazilian chef.
Of course, like we have some very contradictory sort of social standards in Latin America, right? There's a lot of poverty and inequality, but at this moment, I kind of feel that Latin America is sort of became that safe space in the world right now. It's weird to think that because I wouldn't say that 5 years ago, but the world is such a mess right now that I think
Oh man, yeah.
Latin America, it's a safe space, somehow. And it's a safe place for creativity, for trying new things. I think, to be honest, I love Mexican food, and I think the scene in Mexico, I would probably say it's probably the most developed in Latin America. I would put Brazil in second place, probably.
I would agree with you 100%.
But because there's such an amazing scene in Mexico, man. This year, I went to Baja California, and the food there was so great. I was shocked by the quality of the ingredients.
Yeah. You cooked at Fauna, right?
Fauna, and also another place that impressed me a lot was Vida, and the quality of the ingredients there really impressed me, like what they're doing and the professionalism of the kitchen and everything. And I would probably put Brazil in the second spot on that because Brazil, it's very multicultural on the other hand, and you can get really nice Japanese food, great Italian, French, Spanish. You can get anything here, and of course from different regions of Brazil, because sometimes people say, how it is Brazilian cuisine. Look, Brazil is as big as Europe. So what we eat in South Brazil has nothing to do with the food in the Amazon. So and then in São Paulo, you can get all those styles, with certain good level. And then, of course, there are other countries that are doing great as well, in a different way. For example, Peru, they already put 2 restaurants in the top of the 50 best lists. I honestly wouldn't say their food market in general is as developed as it is in Brazil or Mexico, but it's amazing what they're doing. And of course, Argentina, they have such tradition with meat, and there's amazing restaurants there as well. So I see Latin America in a very good moment, like where a lot of good things are happening. And who knows, maybe soon we will have the best restaurant in the world from Mexico. It would be well deserved because honestly, I feel that Mexico has one of the best foods in the world for real, so it would make sense.
Chef Yvonne Ralston, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I cannot wait to see you at Tuju.
Thanks, man. It's such a pleasure. And I hope you come back soon.
thank you for tuning in to the Taqueando podcast this week. And be sure to tune in next week for another episode. And please leave us a rating or review wherever you listen to your podcasts.